Okay, let's get started. Hi and welcome along to this first e-training event on Bracken. My name is Dan and I'm part of the marketing team here. My goal with these sessions is to run them about once a month or in conjunction with any significant update we make to the Bracken environment. Basically, to show you some of the new features or functionality, how they work and how they can be used in your world. We will be answering any of your questions along the way, and at the end, we'll have a quick Q&A to answer any other questions. I am also keen to use this as an open forum where we can all share our experiences. I also intend to invite industry experts to come along and share with us best practices in module design, layout, and any other topics that we'll find useful in creating a great learning environment. So yeah, that's enough from me. So I'm just going to hand you over to Lauren now, who will take you through our first e-training event on Bracken. Thanks very much. Lauren.
Hi everyone, my name's Lauren. I currently work for Otago Polytechnic in the School of Veterinary Nursing. We're in the process of taking all of our courses and moving them into an online format, which is how I got started with Bracken. And they've brought me on here to help with some of their clients in different aspects of content creation. So I've got experience with the authoring setup and a little bit of media stuff, but nothing too fancy. So we have a couple of updates to discuss. But mainly today we want to talk about some of the more recent updates that we've added into Bracken. So what we'll go through today first is text-to-speech. Today we'll go to Pathways Arua to do that. This is a text-to-speech demonstration that I would like to showcase because it's helpful if you have text that needs to be read aloud to the user. If you have this added to your Bracken system, all the user has to do to use it is click on this little play button here. So basically what that does is it will read whatever you have typed out. You can change the way that words are pronounced. That's built into the system. You just have to know how you want them pronounced. That can be someone's name or a place or really any kind of word that would need to be pronounced differently. If this is something you're interested in, just contact your sales rep and they can give you more information on what we need to get that set up for your system. But it really is a fantastic tool and I get really excited about it, so I thought that I would share it. So the next thing we have on the list is a new save icon. This is used for questions like the open-ended text box, the uploading tool, as well as the capture button for video analysis. So anything that the user has to submit something for marking by an individual. The way that this worked before, the student would type their answer in and they would click save. You would get a green check mark button. So the check mark button was slightly confusing to some students because it looks like you've completed the answer and you've passed it straight away. So to make this a bit less confusing, we've changed this icon into the thumbtack save button that you'll see in a second. So when you click save now, you get the little yellow pushpin button instead of the green check mark. And all that's saying is that your answer has been saved and the assessor will be marking it and returning it to you. That's what the new save icon looks like. Again, this is for the upload button. If you're having a student upload a document, a PowerPoint, or something that you need to look at. It also works for the open-ended question box and the capture button on the video analysis tool. Next on our list, we now have the ability to replicate a user's answer throughout a module. This is a handy tool to use if you want the user to refer back to an answer that they've made and comment on it, or if you just need to have their answers repeat themselves as they move through the module. The easiest way to do this is when you select the question, you get an initial gray box. And that gray box is the initial text box that you created the question in. So you need to make sure you have the question itself selected. So click the question again, and you'll see a lovely purple lilac box. You'll know that that's the question you've selected when you have that color outline on it. So once you have your question selected, you click copy, and then you go to the slide that you want the answer to be input, and you click paste. And you get this new box up here, and you can drag this to wherever you want the answer to show up. So it says multi-line text box, and that will change dependent on what type of question you're working with. So when the user goes through, what they see when they click save, get your new little save icon. As they work their way through to the next slide, their answer will appear where you had that answer box before. This works for just about any type of question except for the drag and drops. So if you wanted to pull a previously marked answer for a radio question or a checkbox question, it would bring the answer that they selected. If you want them to type some kind of a reflection on something that they're watching, you could use a multi-text box. They can type the reflection and then it appears later on. This is something that can be quite handy to use if you want the student to reflect on a previous answer or if you're looking for ways for them to build on the knowledge that they're already collecting. So this is an option that's now available for use. This does not work from module to module, however. It only works within one module. So converting interactions is another one that I'm actually quite excited about. Because if I was going through and putting a question together, say I wanted a radio button and I'd accidentally selected a checkbox, I've gone through and I've formatted my question and I've put all of my feedback in, and then I look at it and I'm like, oh wait, this is not the radio button that I wanted. So this works three ways. You can change them between the radio, the checkbox, or the drop-down menu questions. This works nicely because these questions are all formatted the same way with their editing screen. So you can type your question in, your answers, and then any formatted feedback that you'd like. You simply select which question you want to switch to from the drop-down menu, and it will change it over on the screen that the student sees. The one thing you do need to keep in mind with this is if you've done any type of specific formatting where you've moved the question or the answer around, if you go back into the edit screen and change the type of question, it automatically resets the format to the initial settings. So keep that in mind. If you have your questions laid out a certain way, it will change them back to the way that they were before. So don't be too surprised or scare yourself if you see something like that happens. That is something that's still quite handy to have, and it's been a massive time saver for myself because I tend to do things incorrectly the first time. We also have added the option to delete modules. This is something that we've added in a previous update. If you're editing something, and say you've created a module and you're just unhappy with what you've done, you're not pleased with it and you want to make it go away, if you select it off of your module list, keeping in mind this only works if you're the author. It only works if the module is not located in any pathway. So as long as the module is not currently being used in a pathway and it's one that you created as an author, you can delete it. Keep in mind, when you delete it, it doesn't actually disappear. It just is hidden away in a special place on the internet somewhere where you can't see it. So don't get upset if you accidentally delete something, because we'll probably be able to find it again. You just won't see it on your selection list. That's all the delete button really does, is remove it from your selection list. So all you need to do is select the module you want to delete, click delete, and it will say, are you really sure? And then you say yes, and it's gone. So that is a handy one to use if you like to keep your editing area nice and clean. So the next thing we have on our list, we're going to talk about progress bars. So this is an update that came out in the last round, and it's something that's quite handy for users as well as facilitators or administrators. It's handy from that point of view if you want to track how your users are performing and how they're progressing. So for this, I'll give you a demonstration on the Polytechnic site. So for vet nursing, what we have, the ones you're looking at now are all of the modules we currently have in content creation. They're all in various stages of editing. So I'll demo one so that you can see what they look like, because they're not live, so we don't have any students on them, so you can look at whatever you like. But for veterinary nurse ethics, for example, you'll see off to the side that each pathway has its own progress bar next to it. What it's reflecting is how far the user has progressed through it. Because I'm in the authoring account, it's just showing how much I've finished on each pathway. If you click on the progress bar next to the transport of cats and dogs pathway, which is somewhere, there it is. So when we click on this button, you get this screen. What it shows you in greater detail is how many points you've achieved throughout the pathway. So if I have a pathway that has 297 points, it will say 297 here, and it will tell me how far along that pathway that I've gotten as a student. We're finding this to be really, really handy for people who are results driven. So if you have students or users who like to know that they're doing really well, I've ticked all the boxes, I've done this well, this is a great tool for them because they can go through and see where they're at. But it's also beneficial for the ones who need a little bit of help, because they can just glance to the side and see which ones they've started, which one they need to start, and kind of where they're at with the whole thing. So it's not nearly as frightening as saying you have 9,000 points overall and you've only done 12. So it's a nice way to kind of cater to both types of learners. So what it will do is it will break everything down once you're in this review screen. Not only do you have the progress bar here that moves across, but you also have it broken down by which module it's referring to. So what you'll see here is we have all these different modules that are associated with this pathway for transport of cats and dogs. The only module that I've done any work in as a tester is the introduction. So it'll tell me the last time I opened it, how many points I have correct, how many I've attempted, and then you have your pass and your maximum scores there. So it kind of gives you a rundown as a student or as a user of where you're at and which modules you may need more work on. So you can see if I've started this and looked at it, I would say, oh, so I really need to work on these, but I've only done a little bit here. So it kind of gives you a rough idea on where you're at. From an admin standpoint, it's also really nice because you get a whole new set of reports that come along with this feature. So when you're in your admin area, if you go to progress in the zone that you're working in, and then you can select the pathway that you're most interested in. So we'll look at first aid. And you can select these by modules or by user. You can change what list is populated in this drop-down area. So if you want to look how a user, you just click user, and then you would, oh, sorry, I said that wrong. That populates the area below, sorry. So what we've got here is animal first aid. And these are the modules that are associated with animal first aid. So when you click user, you see the different users who have access to animal first aid. Because this is still in the content creation area, it's not available to students, so these are all testing accounts. So what we have is modules and then the users. Let's say we were looking at a module and we wanted to see how each user had done. You can click on an individual module and you can see how each user has progressed. So this is only for an admin person. I want to stress that a student cannot get to this area. You have to have a facilitator level or an admin level account to see these reports. So you can break this down again by module or by user. You can click on a user and you can look and see how many modules they've attempted and how many they haven't and where their point score at. You'll notice that we also have a status action over here on the right. The status action relates to if they've started the module, if they've sent it for review, and if the reviewer has sent them back feedback and reset the module, or if the reviewer has said, nope, that's your final grade, you've either passed or you failed. So let me find one where I can show you what it looks like when the status action is actually used. Hang on one second. Here we go. So here's an example of what you've got. You have these little toggle buttons here. So for clinical examination, performing a distance exam, the admin account has modified it on the 16th of October. They attempted 10 points. They've got nothing right. Very disappointing. Very weak. So you can see on the toggle button they've started, but it has not been sent for review. And the reviewer, you wouldn't have anything here. There would be nothing toggled because it hasn't made it to the reviewer. So feedback and final wouldn't even be selected. In this screen, you can manually move these toggle buttons over. So if the reviewer has it and they've given them feedback and they've said, you need to fix this and this, but then they review it again and they're like, oh, I'll actually know that was fine. They've passed it. You can actually move this straight over to final. And then this will say that this final grade has been submitted to the user. So that's an option that you can use as an admin person or as a facilitator to kind of expedite your marking process, as long as you know what the students have actually been doing in here. But keep that in mind when you're working through these, and if this is a live module, you don't want to click any of this because it actually does change where they're at in the review process. So those are your progress bars. Does anyone have any questions about that? That was a very, very quick demo. Does all of that make sense? I'm going to take your silence as a no. Everyone all good with that? We're all good? Yep. Absolutely. All right, so moving on. We also have new help modules. Sadly, I don't have any for demonstration just yet, but I will be discussing them with you. So one thing that we're kind of doing in the background that will be available in future updates are help modules that we'll be putting out to each particular client. And these will include kind of how to navigate, how to use interactions, different videos and instructions on administration level items. Yeah, basically anything we're looking at today, you'll probably have access to on a help module as well. This is mainly just to make it a little bit more custom fit for everyone as a client. So if you're only using certain interactions, you can pick through the help module and get the instructions for the interactions that you're using, remove the ones you don't want, and then you can roll that out to all of your users. That way they're not getting confusing instruction on tools that they're not even using. It just makes life a little easier. And because you're not getting random questions about, oh, well, what does this button do? And what does this button do? And you can just send them straight to the happy little help module, and it just makes everything easier. So that's something that we're working through and adding videos to and getting text and everything sorted. So keep an eye out for that in the future. And once we have a nice completed list of everything we had available, you can get in contact with your representative, and they can get you a custom fit help module for all of your pathways. We also have added the ability to introduce new data fields to user profiles. So if you have a massive amount of people or a small amount of people who are using your Bracken system, you can collect more information on your members. For example, gender, addresses, phone numbers, favorite colors, whatever you really want to find out, you can add those data fields into their profile for them to fill out, and then you can collect that data yourself to use in your own data keeping activities. So that's kind of taken us through our update list. We have a short time for a little Q&A. So if there's anything you would like to see a different demonstration of, or if you have any questions, it can be just on basic authoring. Just feel free to ask.
Thanks for that, Lauren. Much appreciated. Now for some questions and answers. We have this question from Murray at PGA Coach. Can you use the change interaction tool on a published module? Philip, can you answer this, please?
No, you can't. The reason you can't change it is because of the way that the answer is stored for the question types. So for a radio button, all we need to know is which one did you choose, whereas for a checkbox, we need to know all of the ones that you chose. So we can't really mix and match the answers. That only works as long as you don't have any answers that are already there. So once you've published a module, if you go into the module in light edit mode, that menu doesn't show up.
Okay, thanks for that, Philip. That's the only question we have for today. But in the future, if you have any questions you would like to ask, if you could type it into the comment section inside the GoToMeeting application, or simply drop us an email during the session, and we'll include that in the Q&A session. But yeah, on that note, thank you very much for coming along. I think this has been very successful, and we look forward to doing more of these in the future. Okay, thank you very much.